I will say it's a little ironic in the video on Friday and the video that went up an hour ago because
They don't like when we talk about certain subjects.
Yeah, I like how there's borderline adult content on here that remains fully monetized.
Mm-hmm.
But if we mention a self-driven effort to remove oneself from the world,
Well done.
that's not okay.
Yeah.
Even though we've done it before, many times. I like how the appeal process there, like we manually reviewed this and found that we are right. And I'm like, well, you're not. But is there a number of times I can use this word in a video? Like, give me some degree of consistency, you know?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? Also, yes, for those of you wondering and curious, the hair
It's gone.
is in fact gone. The reason is because my buddy is a pilot in the Marines, and last weekend, not this past weekend, the previous weekend, I guess you didn't see me because we didn't do the show last week, he got his wings for the Marines.
That goal really is crazy.
They really do be going crazy. So I figured, well, I'm going to be on a Marine Air Base for a full weekend for somebody's ceremony that's very close to me. Probably shouldn't look like a hippie. And to be completely honest with you, having to tie it back every waking moment of the day was starting to grow annoying, so the short hair's back.
I also thought he was a girl a few times and grabbed his ass. It was, it just got a little weird. Suddenly, the height and the long hair.
Suddenly, HR got a lot more simple around here.
Yeah, so many complaints that were coming in, and that's really confusing because I was filing complaints with myself. He's coming to me, he's like, hey, my boss grabbed my ass, and I'm like, all right, I'll tell him. Gotta stop doing that. Anyway, big weekend for Philadelphia. I gotta ask, what's your favorite part of the real Philadelphia experiment story after we look through?
Ooh.
Because, for those who maybe haven't seen the video, or for those who are just coming over from the video, welcome. But for those who have not seen our Philadelphia experiment video, the gist of this story is, in 1943, the U.S. Navy used one of Einstein's theories to make a ship disappear, and then accidentally teleported it. We looked into the actual story, and that is very much not what happened. It seems that what happened is somebody had maybe heard about what degaussing is and got the wrong idea. Aiden, do you know what degaussing is?
Remind me.
It is, I am not, just off the bat, I am not a physicist, I am not an electrician. I don't know the details about how this works. My understanding is that degaussing is basically when you run copper wire through a ship and give it, I think, some kind of electric charge, so that it makes it more difficult for, it turns the ship to having a neutral electromagnetic signature.
So it's basically just active anti-radar.
It's not even anti-radar, it's anti-mines.
Oh, interesting. I always thought mines were kinetic.
So, well, yes. The problem was the Germans used magnetic mines.
Got it.
So that a ship would pass, the mine would get pulled towards it, and then it would explode upon impact.
Got it.
So the idea with degaussing, and they were experimenting with this in World War II, was that you would run that electric current through the ship, it would, I guess, neutralize the electromagnetic field, and then you would be able to sail through a minefield without triggering the magnetic mines.
Got it. So you were
Chances of getting through.
you were electromagnetically invisible, just not visually invisible.
Exactly. Some people have said that the green fog that he describes could have been from that electromagnetic field in the air, like the way that it interacted with seawater or something.
I wouldn't be shocked if... Have you ever seen a video of cleaning metal surfaces with running an electric current through salt water?
Yes.
Yeah.
Electrolysis, right?
Yeah, electrolysis. So have you ever noticed in some of those electrolysis videos, especially if there's copper, a little fizzy, and sometimes that fizz is green.
It's because copper.
Because copper. So wouldn't be shocked if there was fizzy, jumpy water that was green around a copper wire wrapped ship that had an electric current running through it.
That does seem to be the most likely outcome here.
Yeah.
Is that somebody just had a misunderstanding. Now, what I didn't get to in the video, because the goal of the video was to talk about whether or not the Philadelphia experiment happened, what's the evidence for it, all of that. What I didn't necessarily cover was Carl Allen's reasoning. Because, yes, he was just insane, to a certain extent. He had a history of pulling pranks that resulted in pretty awful things. I'm trying to remember, but off the top of my head I can't. But basically, he would play pranks that, like, broke up a person's marriage. Be like, ha! Nice. I did it.
Yes.
Prank
It's not a
succeeded.
prank. That's just being an asshole.
Yeah, so, it's like the memes where people are like, it's just a prank, bro, the prank, and it's, somebody being thrown off a building. Yeah, that kind of thing.
So he was a kick streamer before kick streaming
Yes.
was a thing.
He was like, what's that really annoying little twerp who walks around with a bodyguard bumping into people?
I'm so glad I have no idea who you're talking about.
Jack Doherty or something?
Oh, that unfortunately sounds familiar.
Yeah, the guy who, like, crashed a McLaren and, like, injured his friend in doing so, and then continued to film himself for his stream while his buddy is, like, being attended to by paramedics. Yeah. I want to punch that kid in the skull.
The skull! Not the face, not the nose, not the jaw, just the skull.
The face, the nose, the jaw, all of that's cosmetic damage.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm going for.
you're going for maximum concussive.
Oh yeah, we're gonna make. I want this kid and Tua Tagovailoa to be in a sport group together. I'd say Antonio Brown, but I don't think Antonio Brown is.
We're 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Okay. I don't think Antonio Brown is capable of attending a support group, and I think it might be dangerous for everybody else.
Like a kick streamer.
Yeah. So anyway, there's one kick streamer I will mildly respect, and it's Aiden Ross, because that guy has no idea what the hell he's doing, and he just keeps going.
You sure it's not because he has our name?
No, it's not that. He spells it a stupid way. A-D-I-N.
You're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he doesn't know anything that's happening. He's just going. Him and I show speed. He seems like he's fun. But point is, Carl Allen. I didn't get into it in the video. He did not have. It wasn't as pointless as it seemed. Making this whole thing. He did make the whole thing up, and it probably did come from some understanding of the Gaussian tests. Because he was in the Navy at the time. He was on the Andrew Bruce. That's all proven. Real things that happened. He was also a very firm believer in UFOs and aliens, and did believe that, I think he did genuinely believe that he had learned something from Albert Einstein. So factoring into it is, remember there was the point in the episode where I said that he seemed to genuinely be under the impression that he had co-authored a book with Jessup?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if he read and annotated some of Einstein's work and got it into his head that he co-authored something with Einstein.
Yeah, somehow mistook his own annotations as being part of it. Yeah.
The way he definitely had some sort of learning disorder, the way it's talked about, he was extremely bright. Struggled with social situations, definitely had some probably issues discerning reality from delusion. So I think he probably had schizophrenia. If you look at the fact that there are 3 people talking in that document, but he's aware that there's 3 people talking in that document, and they're all him. If it was dissociative identity disorder, I don't know that he would have picked up on that. That was all him. But I would not be surprised also if he had voices on it.
I don't know, there are, like, multiple personality disorders. They're aware of the separate personalities.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, but, like, it's definitely possible. So, yeah, there are a variety of...
If he was that bad, I think he would have ended up in the asylum. Especially being in the military. Where was he? That's the thing, is all over the place.
Yeah.
That might be why.
I feel like I need another one. I don't see one.
But yeah, so this is a guy who definitely had some issues. He seemed to believe, and he said this later in life, I didn't get to go into it, and that's why this episode is called Carl Allen and the most whatever hoax of all time. Because I wanted to talk about Carl Allen. Interesting guy. Seems to have been relatively harmless later in life. There was a woman who worked at the nursing home that he lived at in his later years that I believe was paid for by his brothers.
That's that short one I'm looking for. Where this one got
No,
out?
his brothers couldn't stand it. But they wanted to keep him safe. He was their older brother. They were taking care of him. He was crazy Uncle Carl. So this woman who spent a lot of time with him later in life actually ended up writing this book with her son.
Mhm.
Her son then passed away before the book was published, and so she finished the book as kind of an ode to him.
Yep.
And in that book, she describes knowing Carl Allen and some of the conversations they would have. Mentioned that he looked very old for for being born when he was. Just like, he was definitely going through it throughout his life. I lost my train of thought. Where was I?
He was in the nursing home. She wrote the book with him.
Oh yeah, I think I was just going over who the guy was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he had this idea. Right, that's where it was. He had this idea that he had written this thing with Einstein. He had this idea he had written this thing with Jessup. I think a lot of people gave him too much credit for how in control he was, because I think that given at the time that it was, probably didn't occur to them, to his parents and people around him, that this was
Color first one.
a legitimate issue, and that maybe he
Well-
was just being a little goofy and didn't want to focus. Based on the way that we talked about him, that sounds like what it is. It was all very dismissive. Like, yeah, Carl sends us this stuff every now and then. And don't get me wrong, I don't blame his parents. They couldn't possibly have known to do that.
Yeah, what time frame is this again?
He was born in 1925.
Yeah, so there's only so much people do that.
Today, if he had been born in 2000, he would have been
I
in
think
special
this one
ed.
goes
Like,
here.
he would have had an IEP.
It goes there.
Or a GIE, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got it into his head that this technology, even if the Philadelphia experiment wasn't what he said it was, that this technology was real, that it could put us in trouble, that it could cause serious catastrophe, and that if it were to proliferate, a lot of people would be hurt in the process of advancing it. So he even explained that at one point, I forget to whom, but his whole thing was, I was trying to warn Jessup about this. I didn't want, I was telling him all of these things so that he would stop pushing for more disclosure. Because he genuinely feared what would come of it. Later in life, he goes ahead and says, I was wrong, I changed my mind on that, like, I don't think that was wrong, it's a big deal. But at that point, the damage has been done. On top of that, these guys, Berlitz and Moore, who I guess somebody pointed out in the comment section, I didn't know this, I think it was William D. Moore, was eventually like ostracized from the UFOologist community because he was actively spreading disinformation on purpose.
Is there any indication of why?
I didn't get there through it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. What do you know?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's the same thing we talked about Chan Thomas. Chan Thomas to me seems like he was probably similar to Carl Allen. Just a guy who got some weird things into his head and got really intense about it.
The fact that Chan Thomas got as far into the government as he did, while also having the mentality that he did and the beliefs that he did, and seemingly the lack of capable function, is shocking even for the time.
What's really shocking is how similar his stuff was to Jessup's, too. And I mean, that's what was fascinating to me about looking at Jessup, and I'm glad I did this first.
Oh, well, that'll make sense. I got extra pieces up here.
Aliens video.
How that happened, I'm not entirely sure.
As I've been trying to work that one out,
Oh, wait.
I keep struggling with where do I start. Start with
I was
Jessup.
gonna say, how does that happen?
Believe it or not, it
Right, so
starts
what
with
is this
Jessup.
piece?
So it turned out it was good that we covered
Oh, that's
this
just
story,
a-
thankfully.
Lots of blank spots, so that'll explain where that piece is.
He was not happy about covering this story.
No, I did not have a good time writing this story. I did not have a good time filming this story, and I did not have a good time watching YouTube follow this story.
Yeah, it's been a bad experience from start to finish, but at least something positive came from
I
it.
had had a bad 7 days. I have not been a happy man. Yeah, so it all starts with Jessup, because Jessup talks about all this Atlantis and Lemuria and Mu, but he's the first one I've ever seen who directly connects this with aliens. There's other people who talk about Atlantis and Mu. I mean, Ignatius Donnelly was doing it in the 1860s.
Mhm.
Plato was doing it in like 400s.
Yeah.
Plato wasn't talking about aliens. Ignatius Donnelly was very much on the Tartaria line of thought. You get to Jessup,
I'm
and
still
he's like,
missing.
the pyramids.
What am I missing?
I actually don't
missing
think
that.
the pyramids in the book, but his whole thing is there was this advanced civilization, and it had come down here through the aliens, and that's what you really need to understand.
the
That's
3
what all
by
these-
3
it does
green
mention
one.
the pyramids, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, the pyramids were the result of
That's
advanced
small.
alien technology.
Does he cite anyone else as having noted these possibilities, or is he kind of really the
And I
seminal
definitely
figure?
haven't seen
He
that
kind of
3 by
talks
3
about
green
other
one.
people's theories, but I don't think he talks about anybody else tying it together the way that he has.
But it doesn't look
His
like I have
goal
any extra
was
pieces here, so.
I mean, the goal of the
Or
book
like
is to
that one where I
provide
put one in the wrong
case for
spot.
UFOs, as it is called. You
Mm.
know, so.
I mean,
there
everything
wasn't-
fits together, so
I
I
don't
mean,
think
it doesn't
he
seem
saw
like.
himself as any kind of seminal figure. I think he seems to have seen himself as a standing on the shoulders of giants type. Because I mean, he has to have looked at Donovan again.
Yeah.
He has to. What's very interesting is that 5 years after he dies, Jan Thomas comes out with his book that says a lot of the same stuff, but then really throws a curveball into it.
Really shifts and folds.
Yeah. Totally happens. Not a huge fan of Jan Thomas.
Oh, he was so creative, though.
He really was. The movie 2012, I believe, is basically just based on his book.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the movie since 2012, but
The wild
yeah,
thing is that the whole thing wasn't declassified until 2013.
that's fine.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that 2012 gets that close when this I mean, granted, the unclassed, they put one out in the 90s.
Well, a lot of 2012 was based off the Mayan predictions, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that was the big thing that everyone was talking about.
I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, tangent, the Mayans weren't saying the world is going to end in the year 2012.
What were they saying?
The Mayans were like, our calendar works on a cycle, and that's so far away from right now that we don't need to add the next cycle. There's nothing about the world ending. Then you have these ages of the world, and that I think was the problem. You have the idea that the Mayans had these various ages of the world that we've gone through, then you have the cycles, and okay, so when this age ends, it's going to be a massive catastrophe. Also, important thing to note here, Jessup, for example, went on expeditions to look at Maya ruins as the astronomer along for the ride with the archaeologists. We couldn't read their inscriptions at the time. We hadn't deciphered Maya.
When did we do now?
The 80s. It was fully deciphered by the end of the 80s. I think they started getting there in the late 60s, but it took a long time to figure it out. They had to get through. Because also, you got to remember, think how different. We were talking about this on Weird Bible the other night. Think about the difference between the King James Bible and any modern Bible.
Yeah.
In terms of the wording. I mean, even the King James we have sitting over there has somewhat updated spellings. Like, the words are the same, but the spellings are not.
I can't even try to replace it with something, man.
That's 400 years. That means that the difference between the earliest Maya inscriptions and the latest is going to be massive. Probably not as aggressive as that, because as language gets more and more developed, it changes faster and faster. The number of changes to the English language alone that have happened in the last 100 years is mind-boggling.
Well, just on top of what you're saying, thinking back to Isaiah reading the 1611 version, and yeah, that's a drastically different, even though it is still technically a KJV.
Yeah. Oh, another example of this that I love is Travels into Virginia, Britannia by William Strachey.
Okay.
One that we talked about when we did the video on Rowan.
Right. Right.
Where, I mean, he's using terms like, if you got to a place and there were a bunch of chests, like storage chests. There were a lot of them. They were a little different from each other. How would you describe them?
My Minecraft house.
You might say there's many chests. There's a bunch of chests. There were a bunch of trunks.
There's a lot of storage in this area.
Yeah, or you might say they're different or various. They use the word diverse. They were doing DEI all the way back then. Diversity, expedition,
Inquisition.
and inquisition. I like it. I like it.
But nobody expected it.
Nobody expected it. Nobody expected the diversity inquisition.
Correct. On the expedition. Correct.
So Strachey uses terms like diverse to talk about various. We use the word various. And I think a large part of it, because I think various comes more from French. I'm not mistaken. But he also, for example, this is my favorite one. He's talking about he needs brave men to go ashore, men of ambition and fortitude,
And renown.
renown even. These are words we use. We'd say that's very brave of you to do that. That is, you're very ambitious. Do you remember what word he used?
Oh, I certainly do.
Describe the party of men who went ashore?
I certainly do.
He needed a party of lusty men.
So many lusty men.
I think that was quite a bit of a problem with British expansion across the world. Too much lust.
Yep, they were just an excessively lusty culture.
But what, he was sending these guys to an island that had nobody on it.
Didn't matter. Lust was still a useful
Yeah.
tool in the arsenal for them.
So even just the various things of war exchange.
To clarify for everybody that might be confused, the lusty definition at the time was not what we're inferring through the joke.
It was closer to ambition.
Yes.
Ambition or bravery. Lust. The lust for treasure, you might say. Something like that.
That probably has extra.
What was the translation of the sin of lust from the Bible at that time?
Oh, it was still lust. Just lust was used a lot different.
Got it.
So lust was to want. In the Bible, it's understood that lust is more of
Where
a
my broom was.
sexual, whereas broadly in English at the time, lust was more of a
It's kind of weird that we did a bit of a horseshoe with that term.
yeah. It is.
Linguistics. Crazy.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. The reason we speak the language we do is because a bunch of people got on horses and rode west out of the Caspian steppe, like 5,000 years ago. Otherwise, well, we actually don't know what we'd sound like. Something like Basque, maybe. Like what? Basque. One of the few remaining pre-Indo-European languages. Yeah, there's a couple of Paleo-European languages still around. Basque is one.
I don't know about you guys, I'm learning a lot more than I expected to tonight.
There's also the Voynich manuscript, which may or may not be a complete forgery, but if it isn't a forgery, it's very confusing.
What does it say? I don't know what's on the Voyage manuscript, and I guarantee most of the people watching don't.
That was my point. Nobody does.
Oh.
It's written in a completely alien language. Nobody knows how to read it.
Oh, okay,
It
that
was
was
found in Russia.
not.
Might not be Russia. It was Eastern Europe, but
I figured what you meant was that the things that were said on it are confusing.
no, yeah. I don't know what they are.
Hello.
Got it.
It also, so here's the thing. It's believed to be one of two things. Either it is a forgery, and nothing more, or it is some kind of medical text. It's got a lot of drawings of various plants and herbs, none of which are recognizable to the area that they're supposed to be from, or really elsewhere. I might do a video on this one too. But it's thought that maybe it was a medical text, but nobody really knows from where or what it would have been used for because it's unique. You don't know what it says.
Did they carbon date it?
That's the problem. Carbon dates to around the time it's said to have originated.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's why it's confusing. It's just like, why does the ink carbon date to the appropriate time period for this? If it's an forgery, it's probably in the 1800s.
Is it possible to forge carbon dating? Not on the back end, but on the front end. 'Cause anybody could lie about the results of the carbon date from a lab if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I don't think that people are on
Alright,
the
so
line.
it's 1, 3
No,
by
I
3.
agree, but I'm just saying it's easier to do that than I would imagine than it would be to somehow.
And my guess is that's
create-
probably going to be covered by something.
Okay, so it's the
But I'm
vellum.
not entirely sure if I can get away
I
with it
thought
or
it was
not.
the ink too. I guess it's vellum. I haven't seen. Maybe the ink does too. I'll have to look at it. But the vellum, which is the paper, animal skin.
Yep.
That
So
dates
there's
to the
one
early
there.
15th century. So I think 1404 to 1438. Stylistic analysis has indicated the manuscript may have been composed in
There's
Italy
one
during
there
the
that's a
Italian Renaissance,
translucent piece.
but the origins, authorship, and purpose of the manuscript are still debated. But currently, scholars lack the translations and/or context needed to properly entertain or eliminate any of the possibilities. Hypotheses range from a script for a natural language or constructed language, an unread code, cipher, or other form of cryptography, or perhaps a hoax, reference work.
I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to go through
Glossolalia
these 3
or work of
bags
fiction.
to find out if there's an extra piece or not.
We had no idea what this is. Now, the one thing I will say,
Could be Tolkien before Tolkien.
or it could be somebody like Da Vinci. Da Vinci wrote backwards, for example.
Frequently or just
Pretty frequently.
interesting?
Enough to disguise
I mean, again, it doesn't seem like
Just
You didn't hear
I
anything.
put one in the wrong spot where another one should be.
Or that might be just a myth that I learned when I was a child and never questioned, to be honest.
Fair.
That does happen now and then. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it were something along those lines. It's just one of the weird things that we have it and we go, what is this? I put that up there with the Regius poem, Hallowell manuscript, which is the earliest Masonic document we have. That is like extraordinarily Christian. It's explicitly Catholic. Which
Modern Masons not like Catholic?
No, modern Catholics don't like Masons.
Right.
So I always find that one extremely ironic. Because the first document we have is Catholic. But it also says weird stuff about Euclid. And fabricating. I can't remember the exact term, but something about Euclid taking geometry and making masonry out of it. There's some philosophical thing going on there I don't totally understand. This is the problem is I know a lot of Freemasons. I don't know many Freemasons who even know this exists.
Really?
Yeah. Because most of the stuff that Freemasons talk about is from the late 17th century or 1700s. I mean, the furthest back anybody really cares to look at for the most part is 1717, the establishment of the First Grand Lodge. Even though the earliest meeting minutes we have from Freemasons are from 1599.
Well,
That's 118 years between the
How
earliest
many of those
minutes
were there supposed to be?
Scotland and the establishment of the First Grand Lodge. That's
Only
a
7
long
of them.
time. It drives me nuts that there's not more research into that.
yeah.
What? How do we get from this poem in the early 1400s, potentially late 1300s, that talks about some group bringing masonry to England in the 8th century, and then it developing into what it became? Especially because we know that if Freemasonry is supposed to be tied to the Templars, that's way too early. Templars didn't exist yet, so what was that? You know? They talk about, I think it's not Alfred, like the Ethelred. Anyway, they talk about it coming to York in like the 700s. What are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about? But I guess if it was the aliens,
It's
it all
either
makes
missing
sense.
or I lost it.
And seems like Carl Allen was right on their trail.
Yeah. What I wonder is, Carl Allen, Carl Alien, maybe he knew something.
Maybe he was their attempted first contact.
Oh my God, he might have thought he was. I feel bad for the guy for the most part. Like, he obviously had an untreated mental disorder.
Yeah, like very intense or very intensely untreated for a very long period of time.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's quite as aggressive, but it makes me think of like Kanye, where it's like this person clearly is going through some kind
That's
of
the one
mental
I'm missing.
episode and is either rejecting or disinterested in help, and as a result, it's causing a lot of problems for him. Clearly, whatever happened with Carl Allen cut him off from his family in a pretty aggressive way, to the point that his brother wouldn't even let him meet his kids.
Wow, it was that bad.
His brother was like, Carl has nieces and nephews that he'll let meet. That's yeah. He was crazy. He legitimately not
Right,
with it.
don't
He
know if I
probably
have
should
extra
been
pieces that I can put
in
like
mental healthcare, an inpatient facility. Unfortunately,
2 and
back
2
then,
together.
probably not better. You know, even today, psych wards aren't great. He probably would have been better off in one. But what I think is so interesting about him as a person is that, you know, he clearly wasn't with it, but at the same time, there was a rationale for him writing these letters to Jesse. He was trying to affect change in a way that makes a lot of sense. He was afraid of this thing that he felt would be dangerous, so he tried to stop it. But the degree to which he had to invent things to get there was weird. And I gotta say, what's even weirder about it isn't everything he said.
I mean, sometimes
The
pieces
people
get
who
stuck on pieces.
jumped on board with it and started pushing it even further. And I don't mean like people like Moore and Berlitz who were trying to make a buck writing a book on ridiculous topics. There are people out there who glued themselves on and insist this happened. And I cannot for the life of me understand why. Carl, I get it. He had a reason. He had a motive. Other people, like Al Bievsky, I think his name is, why? What do you stand to gain joining in on this?
Yeah.
Nothing. It doesn't seem like it's for books either. It's just like very intense about it. And then I see the other weird stuff. You know, if we look at back to Jessup, Ivan Sanford was his name, right?
That sounds.
Yeah, Ivan P. Sanford. He, for absolutely no reason that I can think of, starts telling people that Jessup was not found in the park, that he was found in his garage. Probably, I mean, the reason seems to be that he was trying to make it more like, you know, this was definitely like him leaving the world with his own volition situation. He was in his garage, like, come on, guys, what? Meanwhile, it's like, no, every other source says that a parking lot attendant found him in a parking lot in a bar.
Including like the official police.
Including the official police reports. We talked about this wasn't the FBI who swooped in. This was the local police. Why are you lying? He also said that there were no statements on whether or not there is a hose attached to the exhaust pipe, and that it could have just been the fumes gathered, like accumulated in the garage, because it wasn't ventilated, and that's how he did it. But no, I mean, there's a few things. The police reports and the newspapers very explicitly say that there was a hose attached to the exhaust pipe, and that it was like
What piece that was?
like a duct, like a hose for like a duct system,
Mm-hmm.
fit over the exhaust pipe that was taped on. So whatever this was, it was very deliberate. Now, they didn't actually perform an autopsy, so if there was a different cause of death, that could have been hidden. The other thing is that some of the sources I read suggested, and the reason I didn't include this in the video is because I couldn't corroborate it. Some of the sources I found said that there were wet washcloths in the doors and windows to make sure that no air could escape the vehicle. Which sounds very much like a premeditated attempt.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't something you do because you're just having a really bad day. You go, what if I just stay in the car? Let the lights go on, you know? The way it's described is that was thought out. And, you know, there are a lot of people who said he had been talking like this for a little while. He and his wife were separated at that point. He had been in a major car accident. There are a lot of signs that he may have ended his own life. On the other hand, his wife seemed very adamant that he would not do so, and his brother visited him like a few weeks before all of this happened, and didn't seem to have had any clue this was going to happen. So, it's weird. on the one hand, I wouldn't put it past the government to get rid of somebody just for what he supposedly knew.
Oh yeah, no, it's totally within reason.
Could have been any number of reasons that could happen. One of my favorites is the Roswell incident. As I was reading about it, I always heard of the Roswell incident as, a bunch of people witnessed the crash, and then the government swarmed it, and the men in black were there, and they covered everything up and spirited away to Area 51. Looking at it, like, no, the Army basically said, we found a crashed saucer. That's weird. And then the next day, they're like, we didn't find a crashed saucer, what are you talking about? And then in the 70s, the guy who found the crashed saucer, the intelligence officer who was there, was like, oh no, it was definitely a crashed saucer. I don't think that needs to be aliens, by the way. That could very easily be,
Could have been skunk works, could have been Russian.
I think it probably would have been skunk. It would have been them probably testing some of that Nazi tech.
Yeah, it probably honestly. Oh, you might get monetized for that, by the way. Yeah, no, honestly, it probably, if it was skunk works, it would make a lot of sense because.
Especially if there was an Army guy that got out there first.
Exactly, because the Army guys wouldn't know anything about it. So they'd be like, this is weird, and then all of the classified people show up and they're like, hey dude, nope.
So when you think about, do you remember how the aliens are described in Roswell?
Small, lean, big heads, big eyes, all that stuff, yeah.
Wearing like silvery jumpsuits.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the Gemini and Mercury mission spacesuits look like?
I'm assuming relatively similar.
They were like chrome with helmets.
Oh, right.
Which could have very easily, if you crashed, a lot of heat, it didn't penetrate the suit. Like it didn't burn the suit, but it did penetrate the suit, that somebody could shrivel.
Yep, maybe get extremely dehydrated.
Yeah, and then if they were wearing a helmet, it looked like a big head.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna do a video on Roswell now.
It's almost like logically it makes sense.
Yeah, that's. Also, when you look at the stuff that we do have and did have, it's not ridiculous.
No, not even close.
I don't know. I the more I look back at stories that we cover from like the 40s through the 60s, the more I am just astonished at how much stuff happened.
Yeah.
That period of time specifically is filled with so much weird stuff compared to every other period in American history. There's so much stuff that makes sense. Some of it, yeah, every once in a while we get something weird like, oh, there were gorillas in California. What's a gorilla look like? Nobody knows yet. Nobody's brought a picture of a gorilla to America at this point in time. They had only the gorilla illustrations. But that's like a brief period. It's not even really brief period. It's just a bunch of incidences of this in a short time frame.
I only need.
Like, okay, that's weird. We can talk about that, but nowhere near the level of high strangeness that we look at in the 50s.
Yeah. No, the 50s was a wild time because you had a proliferation of a lot of mass media communication first hitting a lot of different homes. You've got a mass understanding of physics and science on a more widespread level, not at a high level of understanding, but people are aware of it. The bomb was just dropped like 5 to 10 years prior to the moment you're talking about. And at the same time, you've still got like a large population of the planet taking like lithium.
Yep.
And, the original recipe of Coke and things like that, where it's just a really weird blend of variables that makes a lot of interesting circumstances.
Can you imagine how utterly destroyed TikTok?
Oh, they
Absolutely one shot.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
If we ever have a time machine, that's what I'm gonna do.